Being a Spanish missionary is awesome in the Arkansas Little Rock Mission. When I first got there were 16 of us, so there were just 8 companions, just Spanish-speaking missionaries. So we all got to know each other pretty well. We were kind of a pretty close-knit unit. Because the work is just a little bit different than when you're working with people in English. The advice I can say for learning Spanish is eat chile. That's what they told me my first day of the mission, is just like eat hot spicy food and you'll learn Spanish and it'll be good. I took that to heart and I had a lot of spicy food and I think I got pretty good at Spanish. I don't know if that actually works, but that's the joke that everyone tells me, and that's how they've told me that you need to learn Spanish by talking to us and eating chile, because that's how it works. It's really nice being a Spanish missionary because you'll usually have corresponding English elders or sisters across from you that can help you out if you need transportation or you need just like to have other missionaries around. It's very nice to have them right there, and you help each other out. They find some Hispanic people or Spanish-speaking people who want to learn about the gospel, and they give you a referral. And if you find some English-speaking people who want to learn about the gospel, you give them the referral back and forth. So it's a nice trade-off. The coolest thing with being a Spanish missionary in the United States is you get all kinds of different cultures. We like to a lot of times lump everyone to Hispanics, but there's people from Mexico and from Honduras and from El Salvador, from South America like Bolivia and Colombia, and you get to learn a little bit about all these different cultures. A lot of times when I speak Spanish, people wonder where my accent's from. Well, because I learned from people from Mexico and people from Honduras and people from El Salvador, so my accent's kind of mixed all around. So the easiest way to really relate people is ask them where they're from. Ask them why they're here and what's important to them. People love to talk about their families. People love to talk about where they came from and why they're here in the United States. And I found that that's really effective. And especially if you can relate to them. If you know a little bit about the geography of Mexico and someone's like, oh, I'm from Zacatecas. And you're like, oh, really? I know some people from Zacatecas. I know what it's like there. Do you know this city there? We got really good when people say, oh, I'm from DF, I'm from the Distrito Federal, the center of Mexico. Like, oh, Chilango entonces. Like, oh, so it's Chilango. And people say, no, if they weren't. And then they'll say, yeah. They understand that. That's a word, that's something that they can relate to, that shows them that you care enough not only to just learn the language to say, here's a message, but actually learn about the culture, learn about things that are important to them. And people just really open up. If you can relate to them and listen to a little bit about their story, then they're a lot more willing to listen to you. I found that if you just really talk to people, open your mouth, a lot of people will listen to you. They won't really accept your message. They might not really always be there, but the Hispanic culture, at least in my experience, is very open to anyone's talking about Jesus Christ. If you say, I have a message about Jesus Christ, they will listen. As you get into the restoration, as you get into plan of salvation, they might not agree, but they won't turn you away, because it's just the culture that if someone comes to you talking about Christ, you listen, in my experience. So I've had people say, I'm not interested. I love you guys. If you want to come around, we're friends, but I'm not interested. I've also had people who are like, yeah, I'm not interested, but I'll give you a ride if you need a ride. It's just a really nice, really supportive culture of the religious. So if you're serving in one of the larger branches in Russellville and Little Rock and Memphis, they have their own branch. Sometimes they combine the young men's and young women's in the primer program with an English unit, just so they have more. Because the children all speak English, they can attend primary and Sunday school in English and still understand, but then have their own Sunday school for the adults in Spanish. Have our own sacrament meeting in Spanish, and it's really nice. Sometimes, for bigger branches like the Memphis branch, they have enough that they have primary completely in Spanish, and they can have it's fully functioning branch. If you're serving in a smaller group, like in Jonesboro or Jackson, in my experience, you usually end up having to translate because it's in English services and head up the group and make sure that the people who speak Spanish understand what's being said in sacrament meeting, and kind of working with the members who do speak Spanish to help translate. Average attendance, it varies. We would have our own blocks of classes, and it would really depend on when you had it. If it was really early, there would be not very much attendance. But if you had a little bit later in the day, people would come a lot more. It was interesting to see as the times changed, just the attendance change. Usually when we're serving Spanish branches, in my experience, you're kind of there to help the branch. Develop a what can I do mentality. The branch presidents are working really, really hard to keep the branch going, and a lot of times you have the Melchizedek priesthood as an elder, and if someone needs your help and you're willing to do service and willing to do assignments that the branch president has for you, you relate to the branch a little bit more, and you're able to fulfill your calling